tune in, hear the conversation, and tune right back out. They don't want to hear it. But then the fallout happens when real life kicks in.
Right.
And I don't remember because I didn't tune in to listen to Brother Raymond, I didn't get the information that I needed. So when Brother Raymond was opening up about a particular topic and I didn't listen, now I'm dealing with the fallout. And it goes back to what I said about Les Brown. You must be willing to do the things today others won't do. What is something that others won't do? What things that others won't do, they won't tune in to shows like this to actually get the information. But then when you open your eyes, you're sitting in a prison cell because you didn't listen. Right. And then we make up excuses for that. That's what I'm really seeing in our community. Now, Brother Raymond, with you dealing with combat, because my father was the same way. He was a air trooper. I guess I'm saying that right.
Right. Yeah, I got what you're saying.
Yeah. So I saw the discipline in him. You know, the times when he got up. I saw my brother. My brother was in the Navy, I think, for like 16 years. And of course, he's a veteran now. But I saw the discipline that I remembered. And it's amazing how that stuff comes back to you after so many years of what you saw. Because Lorenzo can tap on something and it bring up a memory. You know, it's amazing how that happened because as Brother Lorenzo was talking, these are conversations that need to be had. These thoughts begin to come back up. Things from my past begin to come back up. You know, as though I was the computer and Lorenzo was tapping and pulled all these memories up as he was talking. Mm-hmm. And these are the men that are being ignored. Now, with you being in combat, you talking about how you watch these young boys in wrestling. Mm-hmm. You know, when those challenges come and it's telling men, hey, you know, man up or no excuses. And those men feel like they're not being heard. When they do that, and are they being ignored? What do you say to those men? Because I've gotten to that place now where I tell people, leave whatever you want to leave in the comment section. You can't hurt me. But I had to get there. But right. I can't deny what Brother Lorenzo said because it's still in me. You see what I mean? So I feel the same way he felt. So what do you say to those young men when they come to you and they say, listen, I've tried this, but I just can't do it, you know, because when I show up, people are going to criticize me. So what do you say to the young man whom you see that talent in them, but for some reason, it's so hard for them to bring it out because of how they'll be received?
Yes, sir. Very good question. And I would say, try another strategy. Wow. And this is what I mean by no excuses. And in life, your life may go a certain way, and you may say, Brother Raymond, you know, I did this and I went this way, and I may try to go that same direction, and it just simply doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that I don't have a direction to go. And that's what I mean by no excuses. Now, what I can learn from your path is what you sharing your stories with me, or me sharing my stories with you about what you encountered along the way to your path. To whatever level of success you may have, or whatever goal you may have attained or achieved. The things that you run into are similar to what I'll run into going down a different path. Mm-hmm. As in particularly the things we have in common as being men and being Black men and living in America. Because we have to set the stage and the platform for what exactly we're talking about here. Because we understand the so-called limitations that have been placed upon us, the scrutinies that have been placed upon us, which make us act a certain way in a lot of cases. And what I mean by that, you touched on PTSD, which is post-traumatic stress disorder, which I do suffer from that. Mm-hmm. But I have it contained because of really spirituality and my involvement with the community at the greatest capacity that I can involve myself. Mm-hmm. So what I mean by what PTSD is something that when you are in those traumatic situations, and like I said, I've been to 3 combat zones and I've had my friend killed right there in front of me. every time I was deployed, I lost somebody. We lost someone. So seeing that after coming from just the hood, so to speak, you seeing certain things in that environment as well. Then I'm going into a combat environment to where you're trained to be a killer. And my job was just to train to be a killer. And that's what it was all about. So detaching from the military, that concept is still there, right? Those things, I get those visions, those thoughts and those things, and it's up to me to learn how to deal with those things, what they call triggers. Just like you said, Brother Lorenzo brought something out of you by saying something to you that brought you back to a memory. That's a trigger. It triggered you.
Yeah.
So when I think about our community and the biggest disparity I have about our community is that the killing. The killing of one another is a very serious problem. We cannot brush past that. We can't get to a higher understanding until we get through this.
Yep.
And this is what I mean by what I would say not only being a man up, getting through situations that are tough.
Yeah.
Hard. But we have to also understand that PTSD does not only it's not only talking about people who've been in the military and in combat. There's people here on the street, walking the street now, who are dealing with PTSD. Whether it's in their home, they saw mommy and daddy fighting, or they just saw the family just out of control. They've seen murder after murder. This is PTSD. And see, now when we can understand what our community is really dealing with here, what got us here, we can say, okay, we're here now. We're here. So what are we going to do to deal with it? We have to have an understanding of exactly what's going on psychologically. It's post-traumatic stress disorder that goes on in the streets. When we look at one of the most discouraging things to me with this social media is that today, that the young men are so desensitized to murder that they will put it on. It would be on Instagram, or it'll be on any social media network where you're seeing someone getting killed, literally. And just go back to what Brother Lorenzo said, that would get more views than something of substance like this. What we can look at the tragedy, but are we trying to understand the tragedy? See, that's what manhood is as well. Right. Are we dealing with this, or are we running away from it? Right. Because in a large degree, Black men, we have ran away from the problem with our younger Black men instead of standing there and dealing with it.
Right.
Instead of me standing there and dealing, or we standing there and dealing with our young brothers who are prone to this type of violence because of their surroundings, because of their upbringing, and because of their homes, we run around it. We speak above their head. We talk about them, but we don't reach out to them. And it's very different than what and I'm going to use the example out of the Bible that Jesus did, because he went and sat down with these people. And as he was sitting down with them, the same people who say that they understood him were questioning him as to why. Why are you sitting down with the prostitutes? Why are you sitting down with the tax collectors? Don't you know who they are? Of course he knows who they are. But reaching out to people is not criticizing or putting a standard on them that we don't even understand that they can accept mentally because of the post-traumatic stress that they've been through. And I know that it's true because I was in denial, brother, about the PTSD situation. And this is why. I was in combat units all my entire career. You could not at no time say, well, man, I'm not feeling right. I think I need to go talk to somebody. No. No way. You would get scrutinized. You would get criticized. You would get alienated. Same thing with our community today. We got young brothers and young sisters as well that are afraid to say that they're hurting. They are afraid to admit that they're confused in this life and that they're having a problem with just dealing with things socially.
Mm-hmm.
And because society has designed it so that if they do say something like that, where are the resources to help them?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we have to come up with a plan. We
Yep.
can no longer leave it in the hands of entities that's outside of us. These are our children. They're
Mm-hmm.
not theirs. They're our children. And
Mm-hmm.
understanding me coming from both sides, the street side, and then going into the military, going into the combat side, losing someone, seeing tragedy so up close. I'm talking about brokenness, violence, sexual assaults, mental disparities, all these things. You can get all those things from a child in the inner city who's dealing with that and doesn't know how to express themselves. So, like you said earlier, brother, you were like, they suppressing their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I suppressed my emotions with PTSD, the angrier it made me.
Mm.
Until, you know, but here's the thing, the piece about spirituality and not worrying and not so much about custom, but the spirituality, the personal relationship between me and God.
Right.
That's the difference. And that if we can communicate that effectively to our young men and women, because our young women play a part in this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Do we understand that
Yes, sir.
a large percentage of the murders that go on are because of women?
Mm-hmm.
And let me say this, because they're fighting over a woman at one level or another. In a degree, do we really pay attention to that? Well, all this whole beef between this one started because of this woman. Okay, that woman's pushed in the background, but these two guys are beefing to the point to where one kills another one.
That's right.
That happens more often than we're willing to admit it.
Yes, sir.
It happens. So we don't tell both sides of the story. And here's what I mean about our young black men. And I'm gonna say this, brother, because it's very important. I did a video a while back about domestic violence.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that.
And if you look at the ratios statistically about domestic violence, we rarely speak of the male being abused in a situation where it happens.
Mm-hmm.
I heard the brother say earlier, Brother Lorenzo said, well, there's many men who try to see their children but can't, because if you have a woman who's bitter and broken, and she has also been taught by the system around her how to control this person. If he don't want to do this, don't let him see the baby. All those things of that nature, right?
Right.
Those things create a situation that can be explosive. Now, this man can't even express himself fully, because now he's hurting as well. Something's been taken from him that is precious.
Mm-hmm.
In a way. This is all adding up to the suppressing of emotions. How many young brothers you know out here are dealing with threats of child support or on child support, or trying to see the child and going through all kind of situations? See, all of this has a root cause. Meaning that, do we understand who we are?
Mm-hmm.
Do we understand that the kind of love we're supposed to have for one another is deeper than just control? When what I mean by control is this, is that I can't control a woman if I don't have no God in me.
That's right.
And she can't control a man if she don't have no God in her.
Yep.
So all of this goes back to, first of all, spirituality. Understanding your personal relationship with God and communicating that without putting a standard on a person with tradition. Because I think everyone's not receptive to tradition. If a person's a Muslim, if a person's a Christian, or whatever it may be, there's certain traditions that go along with that. And 9 times out of 10, we try to force the tradition instead of highlighting the spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
What is the thing that brought me the most peace, man? And I was in some bad spaces. It's my relationship with God. And see, that's what makes me smile. And once I can communicate that to another broken brother that's from the streets, another broken brother, a broken sister, if I can communicate that particular aspect first, then we can begin to build. Because now that person should be able to open up to you honestly. We be able to open. listen, man, I have no problems with talking about my faults.
Mm-hmm.
And what did I do to get through my faults, and the incompleteness that may still be available or alive in my life? What am I doing to deal with that as well?
Right.
And it's about facing it, not moving around it, like I said. And there's so many well-versed brothers out here today. But the problem is that we all tend to go all these different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna say this, brother, and I hope this makes sense. I feel that the greatest mistake that was made, but we're here now, but I feel the greatest mistake that was made in the Black community was integration. And let me say
Mm-hmm.
this. Let me say this. And what I mean by, at the time that we were lobbying to integrate, we missed the chance on creating our own Black wealth. If we would have just stayed segregated, and let me say this now, a lot of people may not be able to understand this. We were able to build our own communities. We were able to do our own things inside of ourselves. And here's where I feel that reparations, the argument should have been argued competently at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were able to, we had the ability to create our own entrepreneurs, our own doctors, our own, pretty much our own constitution of doing things. We would have had that ability. And what I look at my great-grandfather in the late 1800s to the early 1900s was a Black business owner, and he got all the business. All of it, the Black community supported each other so strong, and those who were in disparity, they gave them opportunity.
That's true.
And so now what happened with him, what happened when we integrated, all that money that we were spending with each other, we start spending it, giving it right back to the ones who didn't want, who we were segregated from, if you get my drift.
Yeah.
And so this is what I mean about not understanding how to build wealth inside of our community. And that's another thing. Economics is very important to our Black youth.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why they gravitate to things that they believe is going to bring money, but it also brings problems. It brings serious conditions. It even hurts the community. So dealing with it is what I mean. What is the problem? One of the problems is the murder rate, Black on Black crime is way, way, way out of control. And we haven't dealt with it because we're going in so many separate directions. My hopes and prayers,
Right.
is that
Absolutely.
like yourself,
Yes, sir.
Brother Lorenzo, we can have the same type of energy and go the same direction, and then as we move congruently together, then switch directions and go that direction until
Right.
we try our best to rebuild this community to the best of our ability.
Yes.
Hey man, and I think that a lot of times